Welcome back to Window on Wall Street, a program that shares information about delayed food sensitivities. Sensitivities that may cause symptoms like migraine headaches, chronic fatigue, stress, digestive issues such as IBS, and even ADD, ADHD, just to mention a few. I'm Lauren Koenig, your host, and in today's program, we'll be taking questions from patients who've invested in Immuno Blood Print, a simple blood test that identifies foods which could be the cause of many symptoms. My guest today is Jeffrey Zavik, author of the very popular book Toxic Food Syndrome and the founder of Immuno Laboratories, the world's most respected source for accurate delayed food allergy test results. Thank you for coming, Jeffrey.
My pleasure.
Now, your company, Immuno Laboratories, has pretty much been a pioneer in the corporate wellness topic that has been, flooding us for the last couple of years. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
We've actually sponsored a series of conferences with some of the world's best speakers, finest speakers on this subject. And what we're discovering is that corporate wellness is no longer a luxury, just something you just throw in to say, yeah, I'm doing corporate wellness. The cost of healthcare is now literally eating up the profits of companies, and their concern about being able to keep their employees healthy and covered by a policy of some sort and fit to work is something becoming a very, very difficult and very expensive problem. In fact, they've invented a new word around this whole thing, which is called presenteeism. Now, the presenteeism is where their employees are actually present at work. They're just not really there in terms of their health. So how much work can you get done with a migraine headache or a big blood sugar drop or falling asleep on the job? These things are all very costly. The person's being paid to be there, they're present, but they're not really performing at an optimal level. This is part of what corporate wellness must touch. It's not just the absenteeism of people that are sick, but the presenteeism as well.
So have you really seen a growing trend with corporate wellness?
Absolutely. And what's really exciting is if nowhere else in America, certainly the corporations and the stockholders of companies are saying, what's the ROI? What's the return on the investment? And it's rather profound. The math on the value of a good, solid corporate wellness program is there. There is a very large, substantial return on investment.
Now let's go to the phone lines.
Hi, this is Robert from Miami, Florida, and I've been watching this program. I'm a chief financial officer, and I want to do some research on this whole idea of corporate wellness, but there's another issue I want to get your opinion of, and that is our team chemistry. It just seems that as good a team as we have, sometimes the players on the team just aren't operating at optimal, and I just wonder, have you had any experience along that line?
I think this is the missing ingredient. This is every time we come up with some sort of mystery like this, it's like what's missing is finding out what people are eating, and no one seems to think much about it. You come back from lunch, try and hold a meeting, half the people are falling asleep, the others are having some kind of digestive upset, and you wonder why you can't get a good team performance going. In fact, a lot of the meetings that are most important to companies are held in the morning before people have that afternoon fade from lunch. So we're recognizing there's a link between what people eat and how they feel and how a team can perform, but we're not really doing that much about it. And this is where the idea of a corporate wellness program comes in, educating everyone on the link between what they eat and how they feel, the effect that it's having on their performance and on how they personally feel, so that the reward is not just to the company to make more profit, but it's also to the individual to feel better day, night, weekends, all the time.
So if I am a CEO of a corporation, what do I do if I want this to instill corporate wellness into my company?
Well, Immuno Laboratories has a program and a presentation. All we really need is a phone call or going to our website and a little email, and from there we can begin to develop a program that's tailored to the corporation.
Now tell me, what about smaller companies that don't have hundreds of employees? What do they do?
Well, the program can really be tailored to any size, and the key is that we want to find out where the company is at, how many people there are there, what kind of health plan they currently have in place, and then there's some very simple tests that can be performed that begin to introduce them to the whole importance of corporate wellness and this growing concern, metabolic syndrome, Small company, large company, individual, doesn't really make any difference. Metabolic syndrome is the problem that's facing over 50 million adult Americans.
Metabolic syndrome, elaborate. What is that?
What has happened is we have found that some of the most common parameters of measuring people's health, blood pressure, blood sugar, blood levels, waist size, these things are all collectively put together in what's called a metabolic syndrome. When 3 out of 5 of these parameters are out of balance, what we find is a diagnosis of metabolic syndrome. Now, that's just a fancy word, but what does it really mean? Metabolic syndrome is what comes before. It's the precursor to heart disease and diabetes. So the benefit here is that when a company discovers metabolic syndrome in employees, they can give them relatively simple things to do that will help them avoid ever having the problem of expensive cardiovascular disease and very costly diabetic diseases.
Jeff, right now, I know you can't give me exact numbers, but are we talking about a lot of money to invest in a corporate wellness program?
Actually not, and in fact in some cases there may be very little money at all. Some of the largest network providers in this country are covering the program that we're talking about, and those numbers are over 32 million people in this country actually have excellent coverage. So it's a matter of contacting us and seeing whether or not that's the case. Even if it isn't the case, the return on the investment will be 4 to 6-fold of what it is that's invested. So the return will be excellent and very much worthwhile.
Jeff, right now, the tendency in today's society, if it's not covered, I'm not going to deal with it. Probably not the best mentality, but how can you shed light on this?
Well, I think what happens is people are starting to realize that what is covered may not be solving their health concern. So if you have a chronic nagging condition or a symptom that's not being solved, you have to really look beyond just, does my insurance cover it, doesn't it cover it? The other thing is all about, it's not just an expense, but more as an investment. In other words, what is it that I have to invest for the return of better health? That's where one will see the great value of doing something like a blood print as opposed to doing some of the other things that are done to treat disease. We're looking to prevent and not cause disease.
At your conferences over the years, I'm sure there were some great ideas and points. Is there anything that comes to mind that you'd like to share that had great significance?
Well, we had a lot of outstanding speakers. I had the pleasure of actually leading a panel where several of the physicians were there asking key questions that the audience had and coordinating that. And what I was discovering was we had a couple of people actually flew in all the way from Hawaii from a couple of large companies. One was from Coldwell Banker, another was from one of the airlines. And what they were pointing out to us was the dramatic difference that it was making for the few people whose lives we had touched. And what was interesting in the flight attendant, of course, they're seeing a lot of different attendants along the way when they're in the planes, and one of them had lost a lot of weight due to this blood print and being involved in our program, and the others just couldn't help but ask what was going on. Rather than being odd about that, they were finding they were all encouraged about that idea, and the word was spreading. The same thing in the realtor's office at Coldwell Banker. One person had gotten so much better that as new realtors had come in, they were going, what is it about you? And next thing you know, they were making this sort of like you're in when you've been tested and you're out when you haven't been tested. So one of the things about in the world of corporations and the world of businesses is that people don't want to feel isolated. So it's interesting that their success, part of their success has been to make it feel like, it's really the thing to do. It's the in thing to do is to know what's right for you to eat, what's wrong, and to feel better.
Jeffrey, in closing, is there any message that you would like corporate America to hear?
I think the key thing is to recognize we've overlooked something so simple, so basic, and so fundamental. What people are eating is affecting how they're feeling. Until we find out what that effect is and eliminate the effect that toxic foods are having on individuals, we'll always be struggling with the idea of corporate wellness and solving the healthcare problem.
In closing, may I encourage those of you watching who may have a family member, friend, or coworker experiencing similar health issues to forward the video to them. And if you haven't had your immuno blood print, please learn more and get yourself tested. I did. We all know how unique a fingerprint is. You're born with your fingerprint and it never changes. Your blood print is also unique, but it can be changed by avoiding the foods which are toxic to your system. Remember, it may be perfectly healthy foods that you're eating that are just making you sick. I'm Lauren Koenig, saying goodbye and wishing you the best of health as you journey down Well Street.